The moment my extraction sequence initiated, the cosmic architect gave me a final choice: select your terminal event. I didn't hesitate. I chose to die saving Lyra. And I demanded that the system broadcast the truth to everyone who mattered. When we were recruits at the Deep Sea Research Station, a catastrophic hull breach nearly drowned us. Lyra pulled me from the flooding sector. Out of profound gratitude, my mentor and commanding officer, Director Vance, legally adopted her. But the admiration and warmth he once reserved for me, his top protégé, slowly drifted away. Lyra became the prodigy the entire facility revolved around. I was reduced to a ghost in my own laboratory, constantly forced to yield my research, my funding, and my achievements. Even Julian, my fellow researcher and fiancé, eventually sided with the fragile, hypersensitive Lyra. Last night, I watched them laugh together as they fed my life's work, a decade of groundbreaking environmental data, into the shredder. In the harsh glare of the office lights, Julian's defense was the same exhausting refrain I'd endured for years. "She saved your life, Elena. Is it really so hard to just let her have this breakthrough? Never forget, without Lyra, you'd be at the bottom of the ocean." Well, my subterranean mission was over. It was time to leave this simulation world. I would give that stolen life back to her, but this time, the narrative would change. I would be the one to say, without me, she'd be dead. The system's mechanical voice chimed in my mind. "A critical security failure will occur during the high-tech exhibition at the Metropolis Convention Center in 60 minutes. Target Lyra is currently on site. Intercept the kinetic strike meant for her to trigger termination." When I arrived at the convention center, I spotted them in the VIP lounge. Director Vance, who claimed he was away on a transatlantic flight. My foster mother, who said she was bedridden. My senior colleague Marcus, who was allegedly pulling a double shift. They were all there, dressed in their finest attire, secretly celebrating Lyra's promotion. Watching their perfect, cohesive unit from afar, a sharp realization hit me. Today was my birthday, too. With some time left before the chaos, I walked over to a small automated kiosk and bought a single, plain espresso shot. I found an isolated bench in the courtyard, dropped a tiny sugar cube inside, and watched it dissolve. It was pathetic, but it was the only celebration I would get. Closing my eyes, I made my first silent wish. Let me return to my original reality, where the system promised to cure my real mother's terminal heart defect. 3 years ago in my true world, she had fallen fatally ill. That was when the entity found me. The price for her survival was 20 years of my life serving as an anchor in this alternate timeline. The objective was absolute: force all primary targets to either unanimously adore you or completely despise you. For 2 decades, I thought Lyra's adoption was a blessing. Instead, it became my prison. "Lyra sacrificed for you. You must be grateful. What's the big deal if you step aside?" Those words stripped away my university placement, my senior director title, and finally, my dignity. And last night, claiming she was having a psychological episode, Lyra destroyed my wedding dress and my research, while Julian held the shredder open. When I had asked him why, his eyes were devoid of the conflict I used to see. They were just freezing cold. "Never forget, Elena. Without Lyra, you'd be dead." A single tear escaped my closed eye. I still remembered a time when I was the center of their universe, when Director Vance would call me the pride of the department. But the mission was over and the ending was written in stone. I began to formulate my second wish. Please let the end be painless. Before I could finish the thought, a heavy hand slammed into my arm, knocking the espresso cup from my fingers. It shattered on the concrete, dark liquid spilling across the pavement. I opened my eyes to see Marcus, his face twisted in anger. "Elena, what the hell are you doing here?" he hissed, looking around nervously. "You know today is Lyra's big keynote. Are you seriously trying to cause a scene and sabotage her?" His immediate instinct was to accuse me. I stared at him, my throat tight. This was the colleague who used to mentor me, who promised we would change the scientific world together. Now he looked at me like I was a saboteur. Refusing to let him see me cry, I knelt down on the dirty concrete, picked up the broken plastic piece containing the last few drops of coffee and sugar, and swallowed it. I swallowed the bitterness down like it was the only thing I deserved. Marcus looked horrified. What is wrong with you? People are staring. You are embarrassing this department. He grabbed my wrist, pulling me up. I yanked myself free, my voice cracking with raw emotion. What am I doing? I'm having my birthday drink. It's my birthday today, Marcus. Did any of you even remember? Marcus froze. The fury left his face, replaced by a sudden, awkward realization. Even so, he muttered, his voice dropping. You can't just act out like this in public. Don't worry, I said, looking him dead in the eye with an eerie calmness. You won't have to be embarrassed by me much longer. After today, I am removing myself from this facility permanently. What are you talking about? Another voice cut through the air. It was Julian. He strode toward us, carrying a luxury designer gift bag, his eyes filled with the exact same weary suspicion as Marcus. Elena? What are you doing here? He was so predictable. He was terrified I would upset his fragile Lyra. Then, he noticed the dark stain near my cuff. He instinctively reached into his pocket for a tissue to wipe it away, but I flinched back violently, dodging his touch. I looked at him with pure detachment. I despised him most of all. We had built a life together, but the moment Lyra joined our research team, everything changed. Last night, he had helped her destroy my life's work. With that single act of betrayal, he had helped me complete my mission. My eyes fell to the beautifully wrapped gift in his hand. Is that for me? I asked with a hollow smile. Julian pulled the bag back sharply. Of course not. This is for Lyra's milestone achievement. Today isn't a special day for you, Elena. Why would you expect a gift? Marcus shifted uncomfortably beside him. I looked directly at Julian. It's my birthday, Julian. He went completely pale, opening and closing his mouth like a fish. Right? I'll make it up to you later. There is no later, I replied flatly. I'm going to die today. Julian's brow furrowed into an expression of intense annoyance. Elena, drop the dramatic act. It's getting exhausting. Marcus stepped between us, trying to diffuse the tension. Elena, just go back to your quarters. If Lyra sees you here, she'll have a panic attack. You know her psychological health cannot handle stress. It was always the same excuse. When I won the global research grant, she had a breakdown. When I was offered the director position, she fell into a severe depression. And every single time, I was forced to step down to protect her. Elena. A sharp gasp came from behind us. It was Director Vance's wife. Lyra had spotted me. She clutched her head, swaying dramatically until Director Vance caught her. Her foster mother rushed forward, pointing a finger directly at my face. Elena, it is Lyra's biggest day. Why must you always show up to ruin everything? You are a curse to this family. She immediately turned her back on me, comforting Lyra with a tenderness I hadn't felt in decades. It's my birthday, too, I whispered. Director Vance's wife stiffened, her eyes darting away guiltily, but the words "Happy Birthday" never came. Instead, Director Vance's voice boomed across the pavilion, filled with absolute rage. Your birth was the real disaster. If you hadn't played with the high-voltage controls all those years ago, the lab explosion would never have happened. You nearly killed us all. That explosion, the ultimate weapon they used to keep me in debt. I let out a bitter laugh. That is a lie. Lyra was the one who altered the voltage logs. The backup generator caught fire because of her mistake. It was never my fault. So why did I have to pay for it? From Vance's arms, Lyra opened her tear-filled eyes. But Elena, I dragged you out of the burning sector. Isn't that enough? The truth was, Lyra had been clawing her way out in absolute terror, but her heavy safety harness had snagged onto my jumpsuit while my leg was pinned under a fallen steel rack. She had no choice but to drag me with her, cursing me the entire time. Marcus immediately stepped in front of her defensively. It doesn't matter how it happened, Elena. She pulled you out. That is an absolute fact. Julian nodded coldly. She gave you your life back. Can't you just let her have this one day? Vance's face turned purple. Without her, you'd be a corpse at the bottom of the sector. How did we raise such an ungrateful child? You owe her everything. The familiar torrent of guilt washed over me one last time. But then, The system's mechanical chime echoed inside my skull, security breach commencing in 60 seconds. A genuine smile spread across my face. "Well," I said softly, "look how the tables are turning." I stepped forward and gripped Lyra's wrist with terrifying strength. Leaning in close, I whispered, "All those things you just said. In a few moments, it will be my turn to say them to you." Lyra's wrist trembled. For a second, her fragile act completely slipped, and she stared at me with wide, genuine terror. "Elena, let go!" Julian snapped. Marcus grabbed my shoulder. "Are you insane? You're hurting her." Director Vance advanced, his face dark. "Release your sister right now." The system counted down, breach commencing in 30 seconds. I tightened my grip. Lyra's face twisted into a mask of pure panic. "Elena, you're hurting me," she hissed, her fragile act dissolving under her breath. "Let go." There she was. Not the delicate little savior, but the real Lyra, terrified because she could no longer control the narrative. I leaned closer to her ear. "Watch carefully. This is what a life debt actually looks like." 10 seconds. Around us, the exhibition music blasted cheerfully from the convention center speakers. High-tech holographic displays pulsed with vibrant colors. Attendees cheered. Then, the power grid flickered and the audio cut out completely. A single, blood-curdling scream ripped through the hall. It wasn't the sound of excitement, it was the raw panic of an imminent catastrophe. Suddenly, a malfunctioning heavy-duty automated cargo drone lost control, its emergency thrusters firing wildly as it hurtled at blinding speed directly toward our platform. In that split second, every single one of them failed her. Director Vance instinctively pulled his wife backward to safety. Marcus was shoved aside by the fleeing crowd. Julian lunged forward, but two sprinting tourists slammed into him, knocking him to the floor. Lyra stood frozen, paralyzed with fear, her hand slipping from everyone's reach. For the first time in her life, no one was fast enough to shield her. Except me. The system gave its final prompt, "Final route open. Execute termination sequence." With every ounce of strength left in my body, I violently shoved Lyra backward. She stumbled through the air and crashed safely into Julian's arms. A fraction of a second later, the heavy metal edge of the runaway drone slammed directly into my chest. Pain bloomed through my torso, sharp, white, and suffocating, before turning completely, strangely numb. The crowd roared in terror. I hit the polished concrete floor, staring up at the vaulted glass ceiling of the convention center. It was ridiculously bright. My second wish flashed through my mind. Please let it be quick. The system responded instantly. Exit condition triggered. Target Lyra status, alive. I heard her crying. It wasn't her usual theatrical whimper, but a raw, breathless, horrified sound. "Elena." Julian scrambled through the debris, dropping heavily to his knees beside me. His expensive designer gift bag had torn open, its contents scattering across the floor like the remnants of my shredded research papers. "Elena. Elena, look at me." I did. His face was entirely bloodless, his hands shaking violently as he reached for me. Too late. He was always trying to save me too late. Marcus collapsed on my other side, his voice cracking into a sob. Director Vance stood entirely frozen, all his booming rage draining away, leaving only a hollow, pathetic terror. I forced my eyes open, staring directly at Lyra. "You all told me that without Lyra, I'd be dead." The entire convention hall seemed to fall into a dead silence. Remember this exact moment. Without me, she would be dead. The words hit them like a physical blow. The very weapon they had held against my throat for 20 years had finally turned in their hands. Julian's eyes filled with tears. "Elena, please stop talking." "You were supposed to be my witness, Julian," I whispered, my voice fading. "Instead, you became the match." His lips parted in absolute horror. He understood. The shredded documents, the cold dismissal, the match he had figuratively lit to my life. His face completely broke. The world around us suddenly shuddered. The flashing emergency lights froze mid-blink. The panicked crowd halted in mid-stride, suspended in time like statues. The system's cold voice echoed across the frozen space. Truth playback initiated for all primary targets. A massive, translucent holographic screen flickered to life above my broken body. No one had time to process what was happening before the first memory materialized. It was a sterile hospital room in my original world. My true mother lay pale and frail beneath medical monitors, her heartbeat faint. The projection showed a younger version of me clutching her hand desperately. Then, the system's mechanical voice boomed through the convention center. Contract offer, 20 years of service in an anchor dimension in exchange for original world maternal recovery. Director Vance's wife staggered backward. What is this? What does that mean? The screen shifted, fast-forwarding to the day I arrived in this world as a child. It showed Director Vance lifting me up, his wife kissing my forehead, and Marcus promising to always look out for me. Watching their past selves, the family flinched. They had forgotten that they once loved me for exactly who I was. That was their first punishment. Then came the laboratory explosion. The playback revealed the true events of that fateful day. Little Lyra, consumed by jealousy because the department was celebrating my achievements, secretly tampering with the voltage logs. The backup generator ignited. The screen showed me pinned beneath the heavy steel rack, crying out for help. It showed Lyra sprinting away, but her safety harness snagged onto my jumpsuit. She screamed and cursed, dragging me along only because she couldn't untangle herself without wasting time. When the rescue team found us, Lyra twisted the narrative, letting the adults crown her a hero. The screen meticulously documented every single lie that followed. It showed Lyra feigning panic attacks to steal my university recommendations, fabricating depressive episodes to take my promotions, and driving me to spend my birthdays entirely alone. Director Vance fell to his knees, staring at the screen like a man who had willingly robbed his own child. Finally, the playback focused on Julian. It showed him protecting me when we were younger, promising to marry me under the courtyard trees. Then, it cut to last night. The screen revealed Lyra systematically shredding my life's work, smiling with malicious satisfaction. It showed Julian walking in, hesitating, and then coldly choosing to let the shredder destroy my future. The system's voice chimed within the playback, mission complete. Emotional link confirmed for all targets, unanimous contempt. Julian collapsed backward as if struck by a physical blow. He saw the exact moment his cruelty had broken my final tie to this world. The screen flickered to one last memory, me sitting alone on the park bench, swallowing the dirty, ruined drops of my birthday drink, while Marcus yelled at me for causing a scene. Marcus made a strangled, horrified noise, but the playback left him no room to deny his actions. With a violent jolt, the frozen world snapped back to reality. The holographic projection dissolved, and the chaos of the convention center rushed back in. Lyra was the first to speak, her voice trembling. No, I was just a child. I didn't mean for. I looked at her, and for the first time, my gaze completely silenced her. You let them build a shrine out of a lie, I whispered. Elena, please don't leave. Julian cried, desperately grabbing my hand, trying to anchor me to this world. I'll fix it. I'll cancel the promotions, the research titles, everything. Just stay. There is no later, I told him. The system gave its final prompt, return sequence beginning. Extraction initiated. Director Vance crawled forward, his voice cracking. Elena, please, my brilliant girl. The word arrived far too late to offer any warmth. His wife sobbed uncontrollably, gasping through her tears, Happy birthday, Elena. I'm so sorry. For a fleeting second, the neglected child inside me lifted her head. She had waited 20 years to hear those words. But the woman I had become gently closed her eyes and walked away from the memory. Marcus was weeping openly. Elena, I'll rebuild your database. I'll give you every credit, every title. Just open your eyes. I wanted to laugh. There was no title in this world prestigious enough to cover the taste of the dirt they had fed me. The system counted down, extraction complete. Severing dimensional anchor. Lyra scrambled forward, desperate. Elena, don't leave me with this blame. I gave her one final look. After today, Gratitude is your burden. A blinding white light swallowed the convention hall. The last sound I heard was Julian screaming my name into the void. Then, absolute silence. In that alternate world, my physical form vanished before the medical team could even clear the debris. 1 second Julian was gripping my hand, the next, his fingers closed around empty air. There was no body to bury, no grave to visit. Only the undeniable truth of the system's playback remained, burned into the memories of everyone who had witnessed it. The public quickly circulated the footage. The frozen emergency lights, the undeniable proof of the lab explosion, and the sheer malice on Lyra's face became national news. The research facility tried to cover it up, but they failed. Lyra survived the drone strike, but that survival became her eternal prison. The moment she tried to use her fragile health for sympathy, Director Vance walked out of the room. Her foster mother flinched away from her touch. Marcus refused to look her in the eye. The very next day, Julian terminated her contract. When she cried that she was sick, he looked at her with dead eyes. Elena was dying inside for 20 years, and we called you fragile. You're banned from this sector. Her academic credentials were audit-checked, her stolen promotions were stripped, and her name became an untouchable stain in the scientific community. Director Vance locked himself in his study for days after reviewing the footage of young Lyra tampering with the controls. He spent the rest of his life donating his fortune to lab accident survivors and youth scholarships, but no amount of currency could cross dimensions to reach me. His wife meticulously preserved my old laboratory desk, weeping over old birthday cards I had written but never dared to hand her. Every year on my birthday, she set a place for me. Every year, it remained empty. Marcus's punishment was quiet and agonizing. Every year on my birthday, he bought a single espresso shot, walked to the courtyard bench, and sat there until the liquid went completely freezing cold. He never drank it. It was the only way he knew how to honor the colleague he had starved of respect. Julian suffered the longest. He kept a single, melted piece of plastic from my ruined computer hardware in a glass box on his desk. He stepped down from his executive board, unable to face a world that knew he had willingly destroyed his fiancé's life's work. Every time a system alarm blared, he froze. He had finally become my witness, but unfortunately for him, he had only witnessed the end. I woke up to soft, white cotton curtains. For a disorienting second, I thought I was still on the concrete floor of the Metropolis Convention Center. Then, a familiar voice called out, "Elena." It wasn't my foster mother. It was my real mother. I turned my head. She was sitting beside the hospital bed, noticeably thinner than before, but her eyes were bright, clear, and full of life. The heart monitors were quiet. The terminal illness was entirely gone. My throat tightened. "Mom." She smiled, tears streaming down her face as she reached out to hold my hand. "My beautiful daughter." Just those 3 words. No ancient life debt. No reminders to be grateful to a stranger. No strings attached to my right to breathe. Just unconditional love. I completely broke down, crying away the absolute exhaustion of 20 stolen years. My mother pulled me into her arms, holding me tightly against her chest, shielding me from the ghosts of a world I no longer belonged to. "You came back to me," she whispered. "I had the strangest dream while I was asleep. A voice kept telling me to hold on, because you were fighting a great battle to bring me back." The system. I didn't try to explain the simulation or the sacrifice. I just held her tighter. Real love didn't demand an explanation before offering comfort. Late that night, a small blue interface text flickered at the edge of my vision one last time. Mission concluded. Reward permanently secured. Original world maternal recovery status, stable. Severing all remaining dimensional frequencies. I looked at my mother sleeping peacefully under the warm lamplight. The chain was broken. I owed that alternate world absolutely nothing, not even a final goodbye. Healing took time. The sudden sound of automated machinery still made me flinch, and the smell of coffee occasionally brought back the cold weight of the pavilion bench. But my mother never scolded me for my anxiety. She would simply sit beside me, humming a soft melody until my breathing synchronized with hers. For the first time in 2 decades, nobody accused me of making a scene. On my first birthday back in my true reality, my mother baked a tiny, slightly lopsided vanilla cake with white frosting. She placed a single candle on top, looking a bit apologetic. "I know it's simple, sweetheart." My hands trembled as I looked at it. "It's absolutely perfect." She lit the wick. The tiny flame danced brightly between us in the cozy room. No one slapped it out of my hands. No one told me I didn't deserve it. No one shouted that I was a curse. "Make a wish, Elena," she sang softly. I closed my eyes. For a split second, the image of the convention center, Julian's terrified face, and Marcus's harsh voice flashed behind my eyelids. Then I opened them, looked at the only person who had ever truly loved me, and blew out the candle. My wish was entirely selfish and entirely earned. Let me live this life completely for myself. My mother cut a slice and handed it to me. I took a bite. It tasted of sugar, butter, and complete freedom. I started laughing through my tears, and my mother joined in, perfectly content without needing to know the story behind my joy. They spent 20 years convincing me I owed someone else my existence, so I paid the debt in full. And then I went home to the only person who never made me pay a price just for being alive.